Hey, everybody. Hi. Thanks for having me here at MetroCrest.
You can share the screen now, Patrick, and it's all yours.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you guys, I'm delighted to see little pictures of Geochrons here and there. And I'm going to give you guys a grand tour of where the company's at, what the company's just done. And then at the end, we'll get right into the ham radio bundle, which we rolled out last week. So the four of us, there are four of us here that are either project managers or developers or admins, just four in our little tiny company, are super excited to see the response that we've gotten from the ham radio bundle, because we've been working on it for like the last 18 months as we try to keep the Geochron digital growing. And I try to keep the Geochron mechanical business continuing to go. So after 1964, Geochron mechanical was the awesome, right? And any movie, any picture, like that involved a CIA boardroom, you would see a Geochron mechanical. But by the time I found the company, it had been mostly forgotten and down to a small shop here in Oregon City, about a mile from my house, and that's when I ran into it. So let me get into it. I'm going to share my screen here, and I've got a slideshow to take you all through. And here we go. Just a moment. So in my backdrop, and also the picture on the screen is the image of my shack. It's now I just became a ham radio guy, so it's not festooning with equipment that's obvious, but I'm sitting in that chair. I'm looking at three screens. I'm definitely like a power user, sort of a tech guy, and run three businesses here from this small office, and go out to the mechanical shop like I did this afternoon about once a week. But a lot of the work happens here in my space, here in this upstairs bedroom of my house. So there's me and Tegan. He's one of the developers of Geochron Digital. We're checking out some prints that you will now see on the front of Geochron, of the digital carton. But yeah, so a lot of it, right before COVID, everybody went remote. The two developers and myself, we went remote, and that was just super fortuitous because everybody's now still remote since beginning of COVID. So going back to the mechanical idea, I'll spend a minute on that because that's really where all this comes from. Geochron Mechanical is a mechanical clock made up of 300 different parts. And so we continue to make this clock in a small shop outside Portland. There are some 30,000 of these clocks that are out there. And you can see in this 3D rendering of the clock, and here with James Earl Jones on the set of Hunt for Red October, that's Hunt for Red October, that the Geochron Mechanical used to be the king of the shacks because it would show the gray line in real time. And before the internet, this was really the only way that you could know without having a logbook where the gray line was. So you could propagate on that. So, So in many different movies, Clear and Present Danger and Hunt for Red October and Salt and a lot of Jerry Bruckheimer films, they would have a Geochron in some government room somewhere. So that would happen all the time. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit. Just a quick story. In here where I'm sitting, you can see that red clock that's up above. And that actually is a company called BRG out of Oklahoma. And they also make a world clock. A couple of years, about 7 years ago, the Jerry Bruckheimer Films warehouse prop station called me and they said, send us a Geochron and we'll tell you where. And they did never send me an address, but about 6 months later, I got a BRG clock back from Malta where they had just filmed. I knew because I was a fan. They had just filmed a movie. And so I think that they skipped over Geochron Mechanical because it was wasn't going to fit them. And that clock was in the movie 30 Hours, which is a Jerry Bruckheimer film. So it's here in my office right here. So that's pretty cool. All right. So long story history. Geochron was invented in 1964 by Dr. James Kilberg, who is the older gentleman on my left. On the right, that's President Ronald Reagan. He had two of them. One of them was given to him when he was governor of California. The other one is still somewhere in the White House. And I saw a picture of it once. It might be down in like the observation room, which is like so that the Secret Service agents know. But there's only one picture of it, and I don't know if it's real or not. But I do know that the the Reagan estate does have a Geochron, and it's there on his left-hand side. His two boys, which I'm friends with on Facebook, continue to follow the company and are super happy to see that somebody cared about it to bring it kind of to the next level, which I did with Geochron Digital. So outside Portland in our little shop, we continue to mostly restore these old mechanical clocks. 300 parts, they do break. There's new technology. There's new map sets that need to get put into there. We're moving from CFL to LED. And so we handle about 300 clocks per year. All of these are mechanical clocks that get sent to us from all over the world because this is the last place that's going to fix their Geochron, which some of them have had for 30 and even 40 years. So we try to keep the prices as affordable as possible. But I will say that here in the Portland area, it is difficult to be a boutique manufacturer where all the parts are CNC'd. You're not going to find any of this stuff at Home Depot. All this has to be custom made, and we're dealing with tiny quantities of just a couple hundred at a time. So as much work as I put into Geochron Digital, I put equally as much work into keeping the mechanical company repairing and building new clocks to order. So every week it seems like there's something that's going to take us down. But this week we're going to make it. That's been a real challenge. And I'm delighted that Geochron Digital and the success of it has largely underwritten the continued persistence of Geochron Mechanical. So inside that Geochron Mechanical clock, there's bulbs that light up the map. You see that diffusion plate that's laying down on it's white. It's below there. And we flip that up, put a map over the top of it. The blue moons there, they twist and warp to create that gray line in real time. And then the little motors spin, and there's two different motors. One moves the calendar and the moons with the sun on a 365-day cycle, and the other little motors, they move at 1 inch an hour, moving the map from left to right. That Mercator projection map. Inside of all that is just gears and a real specialty. You wouldn't be able to take this to some sort of a clock shop and say, fix this. They would look at that and go, I don't know what to do with that. It's nothing like a grandfather clock on the inside. It is just specific to the Geochron Mechanical. So including some new stepper motors. So new stepper motors are something that I added when I first came to the company because the small little walnut-sized AC synchrotron motors that you saw here, that little circle there at the top, those were made by a manufacturer in Minnesota and began to fail 50% out of the box, and then another 50% would fail on customers' walls and nearly took the company down. So what turned out is the guy who made those little AC synchrotron motors, he had retired and the company didn't tell me, and then he started to send me bad stuff. And another way that we rescued Geochron Mechanical, we were able to find an engineer who was able to put in some of these much more sturdy stepper motors. But all of this comes together into a beautiful mechanical clock. Pictured here is our limited edition. So you can see that the sun is down at the my lower right-hand corner. And then you have orbital patterns that are screen printed. The planets are screen printed on black anodized. The time indicator is the lower left. And then there's laser etched. I only made 25 of these. I know we do make clocks to order, but this is the cream of the crop. This is the one that's hanging in my dining room. In my living room right now. So we made 25 of these. My favorite story is I write all the newsletters. The newsletters are good. We don't bomb you with junk. So I sent out the newsletter, and within 15 minutes, I got a call after I'd sent out the newsletter to our list saying, hey, look, this is a limited edition. It's the best thing since sliced cheese. And this guy called me, and it was one of the richest men in America. And he goes, hey, Patrick. And he goes, I got one. My wife and I have one of these in Oklahoma and at our house. And I'd love to, and I want one of those limited editions. What do you need? And I was like, your credit card number? And he's like, sure, great. Here you go. And then that was the end of it. So, and the name, I had a concussion earlier this week, and so I've lost the name, but it's going to come to me in about 2 minutes. So moving on, another picture of one of our clocks. This is an award-winning picture because we have a picture contest at the end of every year where people send their best pictures. This is a guy who restores old telescopes, handheld telescopes, and then he thought this would look really great. This is in Dallas, Texas, and he's a patent attorney. And I think those guys have a ton of money. So anyways, that's a beautiful picture of a Geochron mechanical clock. Yes. All right. So here's our little shop in Estacada, which is outside Portland, Oregon. I bought the building so that Geochron would enjoy a safe place in the back of that building behind the women's clothing store where they could work and be free from crazy rent increases, which is true in any city in the West Coast. All right. And there we are. There's our whole little crew. I'm standing on my left. And there's Amalia and Andrew and Ben and Daryl and Tegan. And we either make the clock or we're developing for Geochron Digital. So quick story. This is a really small business. And about a year ago, we had terrible forest fires. This is the picture in outside the shop. And we were just inundated with smoke. So what's happened is that not only just global warming, which is increasing things, but we have a lot of bad forest management around here. So they can't clean the forests properly. So when they catch on fire, they burn and burn and burn. And just at that time in front of my house, I got a huge shipment of Geochron Digitals that were just hardware. They weren't loaded or anything like that. And they came, they just dumped it right there in the middle of the fire under an evacuation order on my doorstep. And so I'm like, what am I going to do with this? So we all hustled it inside and next to next to my piano. And then and like it's $250,000 worth of computer hardware that I took. And everyone is evacuating because of the fires under mandatory order. And then like there's reports of looting that are going on. And to hell if I'm going to be evacuating with that in my front room. I'm going to sit there with a shotgun on my lap and defend it because like there's a lot of money wrapped up in that. So I loaded it in the back of my truck and I took it down to a friend who lived in the interior of Portland, who had a warehouse there, and he put it up in their warehouse during these terrible forest fires. The forest fire burned within a mile of the Geochron mechanical shop. All my employees except one, including myself, had to evacuate because our houses were close to the fire. And of course, we lost power. It was a big mess. Portland, I know a lot of bad news about Portland. Portland will get its act back together again. But yeah, we have had a tough 18 months around here. So I don't live inside Portland proper. There's the problems there. But outside Portland, it's just a bedroom community. And we live like everybody else does, except for the forest fires. So there he is unloading the my digital investment off the back of my truck. All right. So in 2017, I had been to many trade shows with Geochron Mechanical, and just like David goes to trade shows, and everyone was just like, "How come this isn't an app? How come this isn't digital?" And I'm like, "Well, because it's mechanical. Isn't it really awesome? Don't you see how beautiful it is?" And they're just like, "How much does it cost?" And I'm like, "It's $2,000 to $3,000." They're like, "Okay, all right, well, talk to you later." And so I got the idea that maybe I should make this digital. So I found a guy on YouTube that had made a rough Geochron digital. It was ugly, but it had the right idea. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, what is that? How did you do that?" And so we worked together for a year and came up with Geochron Digital. And that was in 2017. Today, the incarnation of the Geochron Digital is striking in 4K. So now I have developers that work, two of them that work for me, and both younger than I am, and like working from home. So they're very agreeable. They're here in Portland. They're here in my house every Monday morning for coffee, so we can talk about what we're going to do through the week. This is a picture that was taken in Yugoslavia. I love it because it has sort of that Eastern architecture, that Eastern European architecture, that blocky style. So the Geochron Digital is this small little unit about the size of your hand. But inside that unit is actually a fully functioning PC running on Linux that has been rootkitted to run our software. And so it burns rather warm. It's fanless. It doesn't make any noise. But it is that one there in this picture is a quad core computer, and it is running hard to render in 4K. You might think that the Geochron Digital is streaming everything like you get on Netflix or Hulu, but actually, unless it's a live layer, like showing you the vectors of the AMSAT satellites that we can talk about in a minute, it's actually rendering all that stuff right there. So you can run a fully featured Geochron on about 15 to 20 megabytes per day. And think about streaming a movie, you'd be using 20 gigabytes per day. This is just 15 to 20 megabytes per day. some customers, users will just put it on a hotspot on their phone. And so that's kind of the guts of the Geochron. So moving on, you have a lot of things that we packed into that screen. So here I am, and I'm looking at, this is a general amateur radio category and satellites that you see over the top. The purple is where it's actively precipitating on Earth at the time I took this screenshot on the Geochron. You have a geopolitical map. The sun is rising in Turkey, and the sun is setting about an hour from setting where I am in Portland, Oregon. So some other things that go on top of the Geochron digital as it moves along in glacial Earth time compared to our quick time like humans. Here is satellites and precipitation. So where it's green, it's raining. Where it's orange, it's biblically raining or snowing. And since we have a picture here close to the equator, you can be sure it's not snowing. And then we have the weather satellites. Every public satellite is trackable on the Geochron, showing its vector, its altitude, and up to 60 minutes ahead of where it's going to be. So right now, you just see like the next 2 minutes maybe of in that dotted path of where it's heading, but you can lengthen that out too. We've had some other things. Our live layers was one of the first things to go. It was with COVID, right? So we had COVID. So we started to put up live COVID data, which was really great for our for some of the people in our audience. This available information usually appeals to specific people. And COVID, we're all tired of it. But here's what it looks like. It looked like in the beginning, according to the Johns Hopkins database. So we find databases and then we put them in the Mercator projection of the map. Yeah. So what we get in the end is something that looks like this, and I hope it's moving for you. But you can see satellites that are streaking across the sky. I'm looking at a topographical map with a little precipitation that's running. That's in blue and green, and I see cloud cover in real time. And I also see the International Space Station. You see it coming right across October 12th there, 2020. Well, I want that to play again. And yeah, so right now you can see the Cygnus capsule is also mated with the International Space Station, just crossed over Australia, now heading over the top of Hawaii. And so those are mated together because it was linked to the International Space Station at the time that I took this time-lapse video. Yeah, also that purple one coming into Africa now is the Hubble Space Telescope. So there's also lots of other things that we've added. Aviation. So you can track airlines by almost all of them that are available anywhere in the world, and you can see where they all are. So here I am looking at in the upper left-hand corner, UPS. UPS obviously has a hub at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon where everyone's leaving to deliver those overnight packages. You can see that at the time I took the picture for Hawaiian Airlines on the left, my left-hand side, that everyone is heading to Hawaii because it's Hawaiian Airlines. Now, in the afternoon, in the evening, they're all coming back. And Emirates is heading in out of Qatar and Riyadh and has a fine presence in India as well. But as you live with a Geochron, you get to feel the patterns that are going on. It's kind of like when you watch the weather report on TV and they'll give you that quick time lapse, but this is something that you live with on your wall. And so when the data that's interesting to you, it really does follow a solar cycle, and you'll feel that. And then the seasonal cycles over time, you'll mark the time of your life with a Geochron. And then in the big picture here on over North America, it looks like I'm reading the top here. There were 211 United Airlines flights in the air when I took the screenshot of the Geochron out of the 7,771 flights in the air. Now, I took this photo about 9 months ago, and now you'll easily see 9, 10, and 11,000 flights in the air as the world begins to recover from the pandemic. There are just more flights. But if you look at like Chinese airlines, they're traveling all over the place. North American Airlines, mostly staying in North America because, you could see on the Geochron that a lot of countries don't want North American Airlines to be flying into their country just yet. But in China, they're flying all over the place. That's not a political comment. That's just the way the world is. And you can interpret whatever you like, but at least you can see the way the world really is on the Geochron. Here's another picture of that for United Airlines. Looks like they are flying out of LAX. and Newark, and a lot out of Houston. I got a hub in Houston, obviously. So here's an example of the menu on the inside of our system, which you can configure with the remote control. These are all the airlines that you can track. All right, then just an overall view of what the Geochron. Here is a geopolitical in black and white, so that you can see the precipitation layer better, which is in purple. And then here I'm just tracking European airlines, 336 in the sky out of 7,721. Well, that was back in October of 2020. All right. People wanted to see the moon, so you can see live moon action where it is at, up in the upper left-hand corner. About a month ago, we added the earthquake layer so that you could see most recent earthquakes. The ones that are most present and that are largest, they're the biggest, and then they fade into the background, and you could set that up how you'd like them to fade. But you can see clusters of activity as we go. So here's another example of that. At the time that I took this picture, there was a lot of activity in Alaska, the Aleutian Islands, and the West Coast. Now, there was some activity that was happening around Oklahoma, but that's not actually a seismic earthquake. That's fracking. So, because earthquakes don't occur in that area much. So, again, it's like, look, it's the world. It's on Geochron. I just love that. I sit there and stare at it. All right. Just a moment. Yeah. And then for our earthquake layer, there's also a log set of the most recent earthquakes, their size and location. And it's updated about every 15 minutes. If there was a major earthquake, you'd know within 15 to 30 minutes on the Geochron. So other people have taken this idea. I mentioned BRG products earlier in there, but they took, which is the clock that's up, the big red clock that's up in my office here. But they took the Geochron and then built one of their own clock systems around it and sold it to many government systems. So back in the day, Geochron had a lot of government customers. Some 400 were sold to the Pentagon as retirement gifts and stuff. That was Geochron Mechanical. Geochron Digital is now sold. We've sold them to, NOAA, FEMA, USGS. I sold 2 modified ones to the Space Force so they could display them in California and show off where their satellites were at. So it's really cool to see where this really unique piece of technology gets around. Oh, yeah. And my favorite, astronaut Scott Kelly, he uses it as a backdrop for his Zoom calls inside of his office. Okay, so maybe I'll show you, but I helped him out with the Geochron and he's not a sponsor. He just did it on his own, but then he liked it so much. He sent me a small NASA pin along with a postcard that said, "Hey, Patrick, thanks so much for the Geochron. This is really great. Here's a pin I carried with me for my year on the International Space Station." And I'm like, that is the best perk ever. All right. And it's here in my office. I'll show it to you when I'm done. Remind me, I'll forget. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second before I get into the ham radio premium layers. Oh, no, stop. Back. Hold on. Stop sharing. And I don't even know how. Okay. All right. You guys still with me? Didn't fall asleep? Awesome. I just want to open it up for questions before we get into the ham radio layer, company history, anything I talked about. Little interaction. I'm just
from the sounds. Is your Geochron, your digital Geochron, is that like a subscription service to keep the software up to date?
Yeah. So everything I've showed you so far is free if you buy the Geochron hardware platform. Yeah. The ham radio layer, that's not true. The earthquake layer is $20 a year. And then the ham radio layer, which is much more, it has multiple layers on the inside of it, as I'll show you. That costs currently $69 per year. So we figured out that if I ran a company that provided hardware and then unlimited lifetime support and data to that hardware, that's just a great way to go out of business. So we're not doing that anymore.
That's why I was wondering. I mean, it's a lot of products like that nowadays. They sell, they almost give the hardware away because they want you to subscribe to their software service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or they show ads, and that would be the last thing that I want to do to Geochron. Yeah.
How happy are you with your hardware platform? And do you think you're going to have to spend that hardware for more resources at some point in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we first began, I'm basically ordering mini PCs off of Amazon to see what would work. You could get, there's Raspberry Pis that are really cheap, but they're not going to render what we're doing in 4K because we tried and they crashed. So eventually we had to go to a kind of a fully fledged dual core, quad core Intel x86.
Like a NUC, sort of.
I'm not sure what that is.
The Intel net, the NUC.
The stick ones?
Yeah, the unit of computing.
Yeah. So Intel has a stick computer that wasn't quite powerful enough, but but the ones that we're using can do it. And every time we have the Atlas 1 and then the Atlas 2 is a little bit more powerful. We have an old version 2 unit that just does not run the ham radio bundle. It crashes. It's just too much for that because there's so much input, output of information that you'll see. I'll show you in just a second. My hope is that in the future, we'll be able to optimize the program so that we don't have to increase the speed of our hardware, which increases the price of the hardware.
Right.
This is the minimum hardware that we can work with. I would love to have like a 4 gigahertz chip processor with 128 gigabytes of RAM in my computer, but it would be untenably expensive for our users to purchase that. So yeah, it's always a struggle to see how big do you want to get the program, how much can we optimize it, and how much do we want to pay to purchase the hardware.
Last question from a geek. Which Linux are you based on?
Oh,
sorry, I'll let you.
Oh, you stubbed my toe on that one.
Sorry, you bonked your noggin. You can ask one of your geeks later. It's okay.
I did. Yeah. I'm sorry, David. That escapes me right now. Yeah. Other questions? All right. I'll get back now. Let's take a dive into the ham radio layer. Hold on. Are you seeing the full screen?
Yes.
And not like my PowerPoint, which I have it on the screen over here, like the little slides. Okay. Just a moment. Okay. Full screen, ham radio premium layer, right? Give me a thumbs up if you see that. Never quite sure. Here we go. All right. So what's inside that ham radio premium layer? Here's a screenshot. In this screenshot are things we're going to talk about in just a second. We've got solar weather on the left. We're going to add aurora aurora forecast here in a second. And then we see DX propagation, that green and the yellow haze that you see around the center, that's maximum usable frequency. You've got AMSAT satellites, and then you can see down by the Tuesday in the lower right-hand corner, that's a footprint of one of those satellites coming over the top. I've got the International Space Station running. That's one of those yellow lines. The purple line, which you see right over the top of Hawaii, almost over Hawaii, is the Hubble Space Telescope. And then I'm also, because I just thought I'd throw it in, I'm tracking Australian Airlines. So that's what those little white things are down there in Australia. And oh, look, it's moving. Here we go. So I love the high speed ones. So I sit there and I'll capture it like every 2 minutes and then compress it down into a video, see everything moving just like you would if you were living with it. Sort of creates that experience. I'll show that again a little bit later. So ham radio guys have been putting this up in their shacks. The king of the shack used to be the mechanical clock, but now for about less than a quarter of the cost, it can be a digital one. When I tell people about what Geochron is, I'm like, we got a mechanical and we got a digital. One is like, it's like Toy Story. One is Woody and the other one is Buzz Lightyear. So the Geochron digital, that is definitely Buzz Lightyear. And here's another picture of Geochron in a really beautiful, man. Look at that thing. I need to get a 24-hour clock. I see there on the right-hand side. Look at all the keys that guy has. And I love the tubes. This great mix between old and new. And all right. So again, another widescreen shot. And I'll get into the little details about Geochron Digital. Here, we're looking at DX propagation. You can see the different colors of live action that's going on when I took the picture there on July 27th, 2021 at 10:14 GMT, 22 UTC, same thing. And then the big bulbs that have numbers on them, those are the actual readings of ionospheric telescopes that tell you what the what the maximum usable frequency is at that time. The key to understanding all of this is down in the lower left-hand corner. I don't know if you can make out the little ones, but 60 meters, 30 meters, those are color legends to tell you what bands are open at that time. We started with the base of a ham radio map, which should look familiar to you. And then from that, we added ADIF call logs, which are uploadable through our website directly into your Geochron. So not only useful, like you can see it on a browser, of course, inside your software, but to have this in 4K display in your shack looks really good, especially when it's like alongside DX propagation and everything. When people walk into your shack, you could be like, this is what I do. And man, what an easy way to explain it without flipping through dials or changing browsers. It's all in 4K right there in the shack. And so I think it's really cool. Like people are just like, I want to be able to put my call logs up there. Yep, there you go. And you can put them like for the last hour. You can put them up for the last, the all time. We can handle 1,000 contact uploads at one time. One of our beta testers lives in Omaha and said, and I'm like, we're testing this. Can I please get a native call log? Cause like, I'm just a new ham. So I don't have much and mine looks really crappy. And he's like, oh, here you go. So you can see that he's reached all the way down into Australia. And some are even busier than that. And so this is the same call log, but showing all the call signs that he's hit and their approximate locations. Their actual locations. And I think this is his like the full log. So like for all time, we can only fit so many inside of the call signs on the screen. And so once we max out that particular Maidenhead grid, you'll see that's plus 72, plus 13. We just can't put all the information on a Geochron. There's just too much. All right. So the coolest thing is that you can see that the sun right now is setting in this picture on Rome. And so the Earth moves at a glacial pace compared to us humans. We experience the sunset. It's like twilight to us, but from space, it actually looks like a hard line, like it does here in this picture. So the Geochron has always moved at about 2 frames per second. That's all it's ever needed to do. But when we add human live activity like these DX great circle paths, it moves at like every 10 minutes. It's like a whole new world's opening up for Geochron. It's flickering because humans are fast. We don't live very long compared to the whole planet, and you can see that. In the DX propagation that is provided inside the ham radio premium layer, whether for the last hour, the last 3 hours, the last 5 hours, the last 12 hours, the last 24 hours, which is really too busy to be any use, but it does look cool to see all these paths all over the place. This one looks like it's about the last hour that's being registered on the backdoor telnet networks that we monitor and then post to the Geochron. Another example of that just for North America. This looks like the last 15 minutes to the last hour. Depends on the time. So I mentioned that little legend that helps you understand the colors that you're seeing. There's a legend for the colors and the meters. We've since added gigahertz and megahertz to that because someone had the suggestion, like, don't make me do the math. Just tell me that too. So that's also on the legend now, but I don't have a screenshot of that. The dual time, of course, GMT and UTC, and the day of the week. I call it the day of the week band because that's what the mechanical is, but that's what it's. That's the Tuesday and Wednesday, exactly like it's shown on the mechanical clock. Inside the menu, everything is operable through the remote control, and inside the menu, you can set up just what you want to see. Inside this is for the DX layer in particular, the reverse beacon network and the timing and the call signs. They can be on or off, or the legends, or what bands you want to see. All right, so here we have a ham radio map, and it's overlaid by our AMSAT satellites. You see the little speckles around India, little white specks around India and China, and those are actually the Earth at night. So NASA takes big Earth at night photos into huge photos, and then we compress them down so that you can visualize what the Earth would look like if you were sailing over the top of it on your Geochron 4K. So that's what that is. And here's an example of those AMSAT satellites. And on any satellite, you can choose to see its footprint one at a time. And then, so the footprint does not take into account like mountains, but it is the apparent horizon of that satellite. So this is the theoretical footprint of the satellite. The Geochron, to calculate every footprint according to what it actually is on the topography that is going over, would really be faster than the computer could calculate, especially because it's moving at, this one's moving at 5 miles a second. That's tough. A lot of this is organized by a great suggestion from one of our users by the Maidenhead Grid. So here in this picture, which is a full picture, wide picture of the Geochron, we're looking at the topographical overlay of the maximum usable frequency. We've got my call sign on there. We've got the ionospheric radars, which are giving us their live readings. We've got the DX propagation, which is always heavy between the United States and Europe, with some of those really cool ones going down into South America. And those are all layers that are currently being shown on that screen. Oh yeah. And then you could choose a color and pick fonts as big as you want. Because I've noticed that, like, even though you're a humble bunch, you are sort of vain about your call sign. So if you want to put it as huge, bigger than our logo, you go right ahead. So it shows up in all those great pictures that you send to me. On the left-hand side, you can add solar terrestrial data. If you've been around ham radio websites a lot, this should look familiar. And Mr. Paul Herman was kind enough to let us use his graphic crunching for solar weather on the Geochron too. And then he also put together where the planets are. I'm just a new ham, so I'm not sure how this is useful to ham radio, but it looks really cool. And then the aurora forecast that comes from NOAA. And the maximum usable frequency layer. So here's a close-up screenshot of what that looks like. The maximum usable frequency is available not only in topography, which topographical overlay, which is you can kind of see like you're reading the mountains on a topographical map, but also as a heat map. So where it's very high, where like 27 would be high, you can see it's purple. 27 megahertz would be high. Where it's low, like 7, and you can see that. And I can see it here in my screen, just down below Singapore and the ASEAN region of Asia. The maximum usable frequency is low there. That's why it's that purple, that's that yellow and into blue color. So this is put together on estimating a 3,000 kilometer Great Circle path. So shorter than that, and you'll have to use a lower frequency. And this is getting above my pay grade because if you hit the ionosphere at a high up to perpendicular angle, it'll explode right through. But if you're going to bounce it, say somewhere far like Japan, and get international with your signal, this maximum usable frequency layer is really useful. Here's an example of what that looks like. Super busy. But that's why there's opacity settings for all of these layers so that you can see what you want on the Geochron. Here I'm looking at planetary outlay. I'm looking at solar weather. I'm looking at maximum usable frequency, which has taken up kind of all the color space on this map. I see live DX propagation, and it looks like that there's a big window into the Philippines right now, although you may not be able to. No. That looks like, that looks like the Philippines. So, and then we see swirls of the precipitation, which I had this screenshot too. You can see in the upper region, it gets a really dark green, and actually that's precipitation. Again, you can put too much information on this, and we can only have so much color spectrum to work with. So the Geochron has really exceeded its ability to show everything at the same time. It's just gotten so rich with information. All right, I think this will play. Hold on. Here we go. So as I made this video, I was also showing airlines by continent, which is what all that white flashing is. Those are actually airplanes that are in the sky at the time that I made this time-lapse photograph. You can see the International Space Station coming down around New Zealand. You can see the AmSite footprint satellite. It's a little rough right now because I'm almost working off my smartphone, but the time-lapse photographs really help in creating the sense of what you'll feel when you're living with it, of the movement of not just ham radio, but of the entire Earth. And so we run a contest, like I mentioned, every year. People are constantly sending us pictures, really, really great pictures. Like, this is an out of the world ham shack with an Avalon receiver, and I'm an audio guy, and like totally overkill. That's that little, the silver receiver with the oval window on my right-hand side. And he's got a Geochron there. Now, it looks like a pretty small screen. I always tell people, please get a 4K, because if you don't get a 4K, it looks crappy. It looks like watercolor. And because you won't be able to read all the details, because we designed it for 4K. Not only do we have a problem with color spectrum, but we also have a problem getting in all the details. And so 4K is perfect. I remember when one of the original owners of Geochron came over to my house when we were developing the prototype for the Geochron. And I said, I want to show you something you're never going to forget. And so he kind of came in like his little, with his cane. He was an elderly man at the time. Well, he still is. And so we took a look at the Geochron mechanical that was on the wall in my living room. And then I said, turn around, check this out. And on the table, on the other side of him that he couldn't see, then he turned towards, was a Geochron digital and on like a 42-inch TV, 4K TV. And he's like, oh my God, Patrick, you've done it. And I'm like, yep. I was so proud. He was so proud of it. I was so happy. And he goes, we tried to do this in 1080 and it didn't look very good. And I said, I can understand why, because there's so much detail on a Geochron digital. Oh yeah. I think this guy's in Europe. So every year we pick a winner in the ham radio category. And this guy was a runner up. That's a fantastic. I just keep wondering if he had that shelf built for all that gear. That's amazing. And the Geochron over in the corner. This guy lives about an hour south of me down in Salem, Oregon, and he's a pilot, ham radio guy, and a pilot for Spirit Airlines. I like that one too. All right. So great. Hey, let me answer all your questions. What can you tell me? What are some things that I should be? I'm a new ham guy, so I may not have all the details that you want on the ham radio bundle. What would you like to see?
You've given us all shack envy.
Yeah. If you go to our website and then go to the About tab, there's old photo contest, and you can see all the pictures that the people have sent me of their ham shacks with the Geochron in it, of course, prominently displayed because they want to win the prize. The prize is a free atlas, and yeah, I get envy from that. That's amazing.
Now I'll warn you, as a new ham, it will take over your life. Ham radio will take over your life. You will collect ham radios like K5LOL collects ham radios. He has a herd of ham gear, and it will happen to you, Patrick.
Oh, sure. Oh, I've already got my garage has, so one of my things is that I love riding sport touring motorcycles. So like a BMW RT or something like that. And I only ride cop bikes because traffic stays away from me when I ride cop bikes. They're like, oh, it's a cop. No, just me. But I own 3 of them now somehow. And then I have a bicycle, of course, for every occasion. Concussion. Yeah.
Look at your website, and it mentions a digital Atlas 1 and an Atlas 2. What's the difference?
Sure. So they're both basically the same form factor. The Atlas 1 is an older model that does run everything that the Atlas 2 runs. It's just a little bit slower. If you're the kind of operator that doesn't fuss with their Geochron too often, you're like, I'm going to set the screen and forget it, just let it run, then you won't know the difference. But if you're constantly fussing around inside the menu is going to be a bit slower on the Atlas 1. It just is not as fast a computer. So the Atlas 1, I think, is about ready to, we don't have very many left. I think maybe 30 left, and then it won't be available anymore. It's kind of like new old stock that we've been using, but it's a little bit more. We bought the hardware more affordably, and so it is more affordable to our users too. The Atlas 2 is $50 more, and it is a much faster computer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How much bandwidth does it take to run I'm thinking if you do it for like field day or whatever, and you may not have, a hardwired Ethernet or that are running it from a phone or whatever, would
Right.
that be much of an issue?
Yeah. So the Geochron has got most of the features that are solar in nature. Like this is the map set, this is the sunrise and the sunset. All that is already packed into the program. So we're not streaming anything to you. So if you ran it full tilt for a whole day, it's going to run about 20 or 30 megabytes per day. So just as a round number, I'd tell you maybe 2 megabytes an hour, which is very low when it comes to internet use.
That's
So,
noise.
Yeah. So phone hotspot should be okay. Yeah, we have some our government customers that are not allowed to hook up to a hotspot. They're not even allowed to hook it up to internet. So we've had to, like when I sent one to the Space Force, they're not allowed to have Wi-Fi on it. So I literally went down to the garage and I just took snips and I snipped off the antenna and stripped out the insulation out of the unit and told them that's what I was doing to cut the internet. And we're going to take the drivers for the Wi-Fi. We'll pull that out of the software. And they're like, yeah, that's good. So I've been told that some government agencies don't care. They're just like, oh yeah, I don't see an antenna, so no Wi-Fi. But like the Secret Service or the FBI or the NSC, they'll tear the unit apart to look for a Wi-Fi chip before they install it on their networks.